Your friend lends you a sword. A week later, he shows up at your door, raving, delusional, demanding it back. Most people refuse, but he owns it. You borrowed it. You promised to return it. If justice means giving people what you owe them, justice just told you to arm a madman. This is the trap Socrates sets for an old man named Cephalus at the start of Plato's Republic. His failure to escape it launches the most important conversation about justice ever recorded. To understand why that dilemma is devastating, we need to meet the man it destroys. Socrates descends to the Piraeus, Athens' port district, the democratic stronghold, a place dangerous for philosophers. He enters the house of a wealthy merchant family and finds the elderly patriarch Cephalus wearing a garland on his head, fresh from performing religious sacrifices at the household altar. The scene drips with irony. The philosopher who will be executed by Athens' democracy walks willingly into its beating heart. Socrates turns to the old man and asks, "What is it like to grow old?" Cephalus paints a vivid self-portrait. In youth, he was a man of powerful desires, sex, wine, wealth, social dominance. The Greeks called this kind of person erotic, from eros, not just sexual love, but desire in its broadest sense, appetite, ambition, craving. Cephalus was governed by appetite. He quotes the poet Sophocles, who was asked in old age whether he could still perform in bed. Sophocles replied, "I was very glad to become impotent. It was like escaping from a harsh and cruel master." Cephalus endorses this completely. Only now, with bodily desire faded, does his conscience have room to operate. He's begun to fear the old stories of divine punishment he once laughed off. This maps directly onto the Republic's framework of the soul. Plato argues the soul has three parts: appetite, spirit, and reason. The part that dominates determines the kind of person you become. Cephalus is the appetitive type. His morality is a byproduct of biological decline, not philosophical insight. Desire didn't get mastered, it simply left. This is morality by subtraction, not by choice. So here is a man whose entire moral life is an accident of aging, and Socrates asked him directly, "What is justice?" Cephalus answers, "Justice means telling the truth and repaying what you owe," not an absurd answer. Truthfulness and fulfilling obligations are genuine components of justice. Most decent people would agree. But Socrates produces one counterexample. A friend lends you a sword. Later, that friend goes mad, violently, dangerously insane, and demands it back. Cephalus' definition says, "Return it, you owe it." That's what justice requires. But returning a weapon to a madman is plainly wrong. The sword appeals directly to Cephalus' self-interest. Even by his own logic, this fails. Cephalus concedes immediately. One counterexample, and the definition collapses. Cephalus' definition fails because his entire moral framework is transactional. Wealth lets him repay human debts, money owed, promises kept. It also lets him repay divine debts through sacrifices at the altar. He treats the gods like creditors. Perform the right rituals, settle the cosmic ledger, and you're safe. This is conventional superstitious piety, not philosophy. A transactional system cannot generate principles that hold across novel situations. The sword case isn't a trick. It reveals that any purely rule-based bookkeeping ethic will eventually produce an instruction to do something obviously wrong. Counterexamples aren't philosophical gimmicks. They are stress tests. If a definition of justice cannot account for even one clear case, it is inadequate. Cephalus' ledger has an entry it cannot balance, and the entire system cracks. Cephalus excuses himself to tend to his sacrifices and never returns. This is not casual. It is symbolically essential. He literally leaves the conversation to perform the very rituals that represent his limited worldview. He bequeaths the argument to his son Polemarchus, calling him the heir of the discussion. exactly as Polemarchus will inherit his property. Justice, for Cephalus, is something you pass down like an estate, not something you discover through inquiry. Ideas are possessions, not living questions. His exit clears the stage. Ancestral piety and superstition must be removed before genuine philosophy can begin. Cephalus is not just a character, he's the first in a sequence. The Republic presents a series of interlocutors, each offering an increasingly sophisticated but still flawed definition of justice. Cephalus embodies the lowest rung, appetitive, conventional, unreflective. Justice as telling the truth and repaying debts. Polemarchus will step up next, justice as helping friends and harming enemies. Then Thrasymachus will issue the most radical challenge of all. Justice is nothing but the advantage of the stronger. Each failure sharpens the question. Each collapse clears ground for the next attempt. Cephalus is not a villain. He is generous, hospitable, self-aware enough to admit his youthful excesses, but his moral awakening is accidental, a byproduct of aging, not of thought. Plato's point: morality cannot rest on the contingency of desire fading. A just person must be just despite the presence of desire, not merely in its absence. Old age took the steering wheel away from appetite, but nobody else grabbed it. Reason never took command. The highest part of the soul stayed asleep. True justice requires understanding, not just compliance. It demands governing desire through thought, not waiting for biology to do the work. The easy cases, pay your debts, tell the truth, don't test a definition of justice. The hard cases do. And the borrowed soul is not a trick or an edge case. It's the fundamental tool of philosophical analysis. If a definition cannot account for even one clear counterexample, it fails. Cephalus's failure is an invitation. If justice isn't following rules, the search must go deeper. Though that search will drive the remaining 9 books of the Republic. Cephalus walked out the door to finish his sacrifices. He never came back. Conventional morality excuses itself the moment real inquiry begins. Cephalus treated justice like a ledger. Polemarchus will treat it like a loyalty oath. Thrasymachus will call it a con. And Socrates will try to prove that justice is the health of the soul itself.